Do you remember that wedding from a month ago? Yeah, like that one that you needed to start editing yesterday? But you also need to prep today for your wedding tomorrow, and you're leaving for your first vacation in forever on Monday. So what do? It seems that the only creative part of your edits are the excuses you're going to have to give your clients. We have the solution, Wedditor. Wedditor is a team of top wedding editors, project managers, and account coordinators that help us wedding filmmakers edit. They match the right editors with your style so you can spend your time where it matters most, on your business. Nick and I both use Wedditor, and we don't know how we would run our companies without them. It takes a team to build an amazing business, and you shouldn't try to do it all on your own. Head over to howtofilmweddings.com/Wedditor to help you free up your time so that you can focus on growing your brand. Be sure to use promo code HTFW for $50 off your first project. Wedditor, more than freelance, more than outsourcing.
And I find that whenever someone doesn't hire you, it's never because you're not worth it. So like if I can give artists that like one advice, that would be it. It's like you are what you are worth. Like don't let anyone else tell you otherwise.
Hello and welcome to the How to Film Weddings podcast. My name is Nick Miller, and today I am joined with my best good buddy, Mr. John Bunn. John, how you doing?
Dude, my BGB, my best good buddy. I'm doing really good. Hashtag BGB, I guess so. I don't know. Dude, I'm really pumped, as always.
Dude,
but
me too.
So many good things going on.
One of the things I am super excited about, super pumped about, is Vision Quest. 2 weeks from today, we are going to be in ATX, that is Austin, Texas, at Vision Quest, with all of the cool people that are going to be there, of which we are the coolest.
We're going to be at ATX, which I don't know. ATX. We're going to be there. It's going to be a lot of fun. Nick, we just did something that's pretty cool. We interviewed somebody that is like pretty, I don't know if we could say famous at this point, but I know that your wife kind of freaked out whenever she found out we were going to be interviewing her.
Yeah, today we interviewed photographer extraordinaire, LA-based Caroline Tran. She's been in business for 12 years, charging in the neighborhood of $15,000 for photo weddings, but she does photos for weddings, babies, families, corporate stuff. She's jumping into the education space, but we wanted to have a solid photographer on to talk about that relationship on a wedding day that's really important to all of us, and that is the relationship between video and photo, how we can better work together on the wedding day, and Caroline had some great things to talk about that. So let's go ahead and jump into our episode with Caroline Tran, talking about all of the stuff she's involved with and how photo and video can work better together. All right. Well, Caroline, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. Why don't you take a few moments and just introduce yourself and tell people who you are and what you do and that sort of thing.
Hi. So thank you so much for having me, first of all. I love what you guys are doing. And I think this is such a great resource, and I'm honored to be here. So I'm a Los Angeles-based photographer. I shoot anything from weddings to babies to content creation and commercial work. I love people, I love stories, and that's ultimately what I try to follow.
Okay. So you're kind of, when it comes to photography, you're kind of all over, you kind of do a little bit of everything. So how long have you been in your business? How long have you been, doing photography?
I've been shooting weddings for, I think, 12 years now.
Wow.
Yeah, seasoned. Wow.
A veteran.
Yeah, that's great. And is weddings like the primary thing that you do, or is it kind of really evenly divided between, everything?
I think weddings was definitely how I started. And then one thing to know about me is I have short attention span. I am interested in a million things. So naturally, I just started to expanding my business. I would say weddings still consist of I got to the point where weddings was still half of my income, and then I made the other half in portraits. And that came from when I was pregnant and decided to have a family, and I realized, I really don't want to be away most of the weekends. Once my kids are in school, like when would I ever see them, right? If they're gone Monday through Friday, and then I'm gone Saturday and Sundays. So my goal at probably about 8 years ago, when I had my first, I decided that, I'm going to branch out from weddings, and I'm going to also start doing babies and families. And it kind of worked as well because a lot of my wedding couples were starting to have babies. So it was a natural progression where I grew with them. You find a need and you meet that need for them, right, with your client. Because I think building your client base, as you know, is like the hardest part, right? So once you've built this loyal following, like how do you grow with them, right? Unless they're getting married the second or third time, like I didn't want the and in that case, like they might not hire you again.
Right.
So great to see you again on your second, third wedding.
It's way better than your last one.
And so I was maintaining these relationships with my wedding couples, and I was seeing a need for babies and family photos, and so I ended up branching out my business, and I created a portrait site as well. And so I was able to then divide my income. And it was great because I raised prices on wedding. So I was still making the same amount that I was making from weddings anyway, but now in a sense doubling my income because I found a way to now make additional revenue streams on Monday through Friday.
Love it.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So when it comes to, your wedding portrait, or your wedding work, can you just let our listeners know, I mean, you have been doing it for 12 years, so, you're seasoned, you've been doing it for a while, but kind of, what are your maybe starting prices or what's kind of included with that, kind of just talk us through that sort of thing.
Like currently or when I started?
I mean, you could do a when you started and then kind of counter that with what you're doing now.
Yeah. I mean, when I started, I think I was $1,800 for a wedding.
Okay.
I don't remember what it included, but it probably included everything.
Sure.
One of everything, please.
And then I raised my prices like every couple bookings, got myself, into like the 2,000, 3,000 range. I felt like that part grew really fast. That was the easy to grow part. I think the hardest part was probably going beyond the 5,000 point. Because I think from the 3,000 to 5,000, you're still kind of affordable to, I feel like under 3,000, you're like in the very economy class.
Yeah.
Right. 3,000 to 5,000, you have a wide market now. It's a lot of people. And again, this is speaking like, I don't know, 10 years ago, right? The threshold is probably a little bit higher in today's standard. But then I found that there was a point where it was really hard to then bump past. And for me, that was 5,000, like 55-ish. And I had to not rebrand, but like really think about how, for example, under 5,000, I was still meeting them at Starbucks. And I found that after 5,000, meeting in Starbucks became harder to convert the clients. And even things like the products that I offer, how I deliver their photos, the packages, even how I present the packages to them. I just felt like I had to then look more like the more expensive brand. And I find that whenever someone doesn't hire you, it's never because you're not worth it. So like if I can give artists that like one advice, that would be it. It's like you are what you are worth. Like don't let anyone else tell you otherwise. And just because people aren't willing to book you doesn't mean that you're not worth it. It means that you haven't successfully communicated your value to them. So I would take time to reflect more on like, okay, why didn't they book me? It's not because I'm not worth 7,000 or 10,000 or whatever. It's because I didn't convince them that I'm worth that much. So the reality could be, okay, actually my work needs to improve. That could be it as well. Or it could be my marketing needs to improve. My customer service needs to improve. So that's eventually how I bumped up. And then now I would say it's like 10 to 15,000 is an average booking.
Boom.
Wow, that's
so
great.
12
that's
years
great.
in, 10 to 15,000. What is that like wedding package wise? What all does that include for that? And how many are you trying to shoot in 1 year?
For me right now, so my business again has expanded some more because, like I said, I have a very short attention span. So my goal for this year was to go 50, just like how 8 years ago, my goal was to go 50% weddings, 50% portraits. I feel like this part is so streamlined now. So my goal now is to streamline this to 50% of my business. And now I'm trying to branch into education. So my other 50% of my revenue and time, I want it to come from courses, workshops, and helping other creatives like ourselves succeed in this industry.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
Cool.
I really like that point. I love that point that you made about, you are worth what you say you're worth, but maybe you're just not communicating that correctly. And John and I have talked a lot about, branding and website and how it all, when people go to your website, what's it telling people and that kind of thing. And I think that for the longest time, what you're talking about is something that photographers have had a better handle on than videographers, because, when it comes to your deliverables and how you can deliver them and your packaging and all that kind of stuff, because a lot of us video people are like, okay, well, here's your YouTube link or here's your Vimeo, we don't have that packaging and like that kind of stuff that can give that value, because, it's something nice that you can look at and that you can
a little bit though, because, sorry to cut you off.
No, go ahead. Talk. Tell me I'm wrong.
For example, for video, right? Because now I'm starting to offer video on my end as well. And one of the things I noticed is so I work with a lot of other freelance filmmakers as well. And I noticed there's a big difference if you're oh, here's a Dropbox links to your video versus you can up the game. And again, it depends on your brand, right? You wouldn't walk into a Target and expect them to hand you tissue wrap, your product for you, right? You are satisfied with them just throwing in a plastic bag and you walking out with it, right? So to me, that's your Dropbox link. But when you start getting into say the $10,000, $15,000, right? To me, that's buying your Rolex watch or some high end. You would not be okay with them throwing in a plastic bag.
Yeah, exactly.
Or a Dropbox link. So I think
I would be downright upset.
Here's your wedding video in a plastic bag.
Oh man, John would throw his Rolex in the trash.
It would be a Rolex, actually.
It would be a
fake.
Rolex.
It'd be a knockoff. Yeah, I do have a Rolex, Nick. I told you not to tell anybody it was fake.
Oh man.
But I do think there are ways you can slowly elevate your brand, and this is what I had to learn about my brand, right? That previously giving them a downloadable link was satisfactory. Now it has to be a fancier gallery, an online gallery. And I know for video, there are other options, for example, MediaZilla. I don't know if you want me to be dropping any software names.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine.
Yeah, but
Drop it like it's not. Yeah.
so you can create a MediaZilla, page link for them, right? That at least looks like a pretty presentation so that it's not as simple as a Dropbox link or Google Drive link or whatever. If you want to take that up a notch, you could even then put it on a hard drive and in a custom hard drive in a pretty box, wrap it up and send that to them. That would take it up a notch. But again, those are goals you can aspire to, at certain price points. So you can tell yourself, okay, when I hit the 5,000 mark, this is what I'm going to do. When I hit the 10,000 mark, this is what I'm going to do. But no one's expecting it earlier on.
So you mentioned something. You said we don't meet at Starbucks anymore. That made me think, oh yeah, I don't really do Starbucks meetings anymore now that I'm charging more. But I think our listeners, before we jump into talking about the meat of this conversation, I think it'd be cool. Maybe some of the things that did change. Where are you meeting with people? What is your vibe when you're meeting with them? What type of things are you giving to them for that customer experience?
That's a really great question. So I started off at Starbucks. That was, universal, easy to meet, right? Eventually, I then upgraded to nicer coffee shops. What were some kind of more hip boutique type of coffee shops that I think these people would want to meet at. Even I tried hotel lobbies. I've tried meeting at their wedding venues, and I've done their house as well. the nice thing about their house is like they're in their comfort zone. What I noticed is when I was in the lower end market, these people weren't necessarily comfortable having me come into their homes anyway. So then I would have them name the place. Yeah. Like, I'm in this area, if you want to meet anywhere in between. Like, so if they name the place, then I at least kind of have an idea of what their vibe is. But eventually, and this is like when I was still catering, like chasing my market, so to speak. Like they were setting the pace and I was going with it. I think eventually I had a better vision of who I am and what I want to offer. So then at that point I got a studio, and it was a shared studio. So it was actually not that much money. There was 4 of us that split it total. And so what rent worked out.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah, it ended up being less than $200 for each of us. It was a small space, just enough to be a meeting spot. That's how much you're spending on coffee anyway. You take 4 people out to lunch and that's kind of the price, right? So that's how I justified it.
Yep.
And then now I made them come to me. I was able to decorate the space. We shared it, but we were all in different industries, which I think is not industry, sorry, but like one was a wedding planner, I was a photographer, there was a makeup artist, and there was a stylist. So none of us necessarily competed with each other, but we had a shared space that people can come to. It felt homey and it felt established. I think when I was meeting at a Starbucks, it was kind of hard to tell people, hey, like, hand over $7,000, I'll shoot your wedding. We're meeting at a Starbucks. You might not be able to find me tomorrow, but versus when I had an office, then it felt more like established. Like, okay, like she's not going anywhere.
So you're meeting them at, your own studio now. The difference in the way that you communicate, maybe, or is there anything in the different? Did you reword things? Did you talked about your packages and stuff like that? What changed? What changed there?
I think there's been so many phases to my business, and there's been so many points where I had to level up. Like one thing to know about me is I love challenges and I love difficulty. Like when I hit a point, like, and I'm sure like as business owners, all of you have run into that situation where you just you feel like you've run into a wall and you're so frustrated, So either bookings have suddenly stopped or inquiries have stopped, and the business is in a very frustrating state at this point because it's not where you want it to be. And I actually thrive on that because for me, that's room for improvement. Because when it's comfortable, we don't grow. When it's comfortable, we maintain status quo, right? Things are working. It's fine. We just keep running it like a well-oiled machine. However, it's during those moments of like, that's when we're motivated enough to change something. And so for me, like, when bookings suddenly stop or inquiries are slowing down, that's when it's a good time to reflect. And about every few years, I find that I have to update something. And for example, a couple years ago, it was website. I realized, my website, it's been working, but it's so out of date now. And I was not motivated to switch it because it was working, but I'm noticing I'm not getting the quality leads that I want to get. So let's, 1 year, and tackle it one thing at a time. You're not going to be able to overhaul everything all at once, right? So 1 year, I redid my website. And that helped me get better quality bookings. And I saw the improvement right away. It's like, all right, they're higher end leads now. Then I noticed, okay, I'm getting the leads, but they're not converting. Why aren't they converting? So then it's time to, okay, let's look back. Is it in the consultation that I'm losing them? Is it the packages that I'm losing them? And at one point I realized I need to redo the PDFs that I'm giving out to them. They don't look that nice. I could make them look nicer, right? So I make them look nicer and then bookings go up again. And then like there's always hiccups somewhere, right? Like there are different phases, like in a whole customer journey, there's so many room for errors, right? Or room for improvement, I should say. And so, you pick one thing at a time. And that's kind of just how I've slowly, continually grow my business and improving it and growing and keeping up to date with all the changes. And, back when I first started, I was giving CDs out. And I remember I didn't update my packages for the longest time, and the packages still said you get a DVD of all your photos. Like, okay, no one uses DVDs now.
Right. Oh man, the days of the DVDs. I don't even want to go there.
I was
Not
like
going there
custom
now.
burning the DVDs, with the custom photo.
Oh, the label and getting the little bubbles out of the paper. Mm-hmm.
Oh
Been
yeah,
there.
I remember
2007, y'all. That's what that was all about.
Well, then I eventually got the one that actually burned the image and text onto the DVD itself.
She's fancy.
I'm impressed.
She's fancy.
Fancy, yeah.
So, man, I think that we could probably spend like our, entire podcast, with Caroline, just talking about, some business stuff and improving your business and that kind of stuff. But we want to shift gears, just a little bit. And we want to talk to a seasoned wedding photographer that knows what they're doing, that's charging, a quality amount, and talk to her about her experiences with videographers. There are so many people in our industry that I don't know. They think that they're the most important thing on the wedding day and not the couple or the vendors that they're working with or anything else. And so I know that, if you go in Facebook groups, I'm sure that there's photographers ranting all the time about how awful the videographer was that they worked with. Same thing in our video groups, oh, this photographer was in my way the whole time. And so we just wanted to spend a little bit today and open up a dialogue between video and photo to talk about, how us as videographers can improve our working relationships with photographers and kind of know what's going on in a photo person's mind. So let's just, kind of jump in and rip the Band-Aid off and talk about this. What are maybe, Caroline, some of the things that it's going to be a tough day when a videographer shows up and does this? What are some things that kind of drive you crazy?
I think, just for transparency's sake, though, I actually really love working with videographers. I do know that there was a time where photographers love to hate on videographers, and it's probably vice versa as well. But maybe I'm just fortunate enough that the people that I've been working with have been really good. But I do think going in with the understanding that we are one team and that we all have the same end goal. I think that helps a ton. And so whenever I work with a videographer, I establish right off the bat that we are a team. We're going to be fighting for the same angles, so we might as well work together with it. Generally, they let me take the lead, and so I always will let them have time to do their things. And like I said, when I do posing, I told you off the record, but so I'll pretend I haven't said any of that. Rewind. So whenever I work with couples, whenever I'm posing couples, it's very dynamic and there's a lot of motion and fluidity to it. So it's not stagnant. So a lot of the times the filmmakers I work with are able to get the shots right next to me or from an alternate angle already. And of course, and I tell them too, if you need to step in, just wait until I'm done with the flow that I'm doing. And then you are more than welcome to step in and punch in for any close-ups that you need to do. I think it probably also helps that I started to dabble in film myself. I wouldn't say that's my main thing, definitely not, but I love the production side, the art direction side of it. And so I can see what they need. It's you're gonna want to go in for a punched in one for this.
We know the time suck that is searching for the perfect song for your wedding film. MusicBed has spent years collaborating with artists, bands, and composers to make it easier than ever for anyone to find the right song for their video.
With amazing artists like Chapters, Tony Anderson, and The Light, The Heat, MusicBed is the best place for wedding videographers to get licensed music.
Their subscription service was a life changer for me, especially since all of their subscription music is pre-cleared for every social media platform: Facebook, Instagram, Love Stories TV, and my personal favorite, YouTube, all pre-cleared.
And if you are interested in a free month of a MusicBed wedding subscription, head over to howtofilmweddings.com/musicbed. When you sign up, use the promo code HTFW and you will get your first month for free. So my wife started out as a photographer, and that's kind of how I got into doing video. I second shot for her, and I was like, photo's not my thing, but I found video. I really liked it. And a few years ago, she actually joined, my team, joined me. Now we're a husband and wife team. We do, video together. And she has said on numerous occasions, I wish that more photo people could experience video on a wedding day, and I wish more video people could experience photo on a wedding day, because she's like, I feel like I'm able to come at this with such a different perspective because I've done both. I've done weddings for both photo and for video. So I love that point that you're able to kind of know what a video person might need or what they're thinking about because you've done that a little bit.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, like a couple of years ago, one of the pet peeves that I had with videographers is when they needed to redo things. So like when we would do a first look, it's okay, like we just did the whole first look. It's like, okay, can we do that again now? I'm like, we just did it. Why do you need to do it again? But I get it now, like, you know, having been on the filmmaker side of it as well. It's like, okay, you need alternate angles. You know, yes, I would have preferred had you had two cameras set up to start, but I do also get it's challenging when you don't have to not be in each other's shot as well. Mm-hmm. So nowadays, what I love is I like to be. We have a meeting right before, and we figure out what all the camera angles are, because I need those alternate angles as well, right? So if we can plan it together, like, all right, so this first look, we're gonna all be on the front of the groom, we're getting the face reactions and the side view. And then afterwards, we're going to do an alternate take where we're going to follow the bride from behind. But ultimately, what I tell them is we can't fake emotion. So you have to prioritize the emotions on the first take. The second take, we're going for B-roll, you know, alternate angles, punched in kind of details. But they're not actors. They're not going to know how to redo it again. It wasn't scripted.
I'll say too, as I'm listening to you talk, you know, you said most of the video people you work with are, you know, a dream to work with. They're easier to work with. As I've started charging more, the more luxury type weddings, the bigger ballroom weddings, the photographers that I'm working with have worked with videographers more often. And so that's just one thing to the listeners. If you're still in, you know, a low or medium range, you're going to have to do an extra amount of work just to be communicating maybe before the wedding, you know, during the wedding, and just be, you know, the photographer is in their little eye cup. They're just doing their thing. You know, I've worked a couple of weddings in the last 5 years where it's like they spent all their budget on video because they just wanted me there. And they had like a friend be the photographer or something. And the photographer just didn't know how to be with video people. So, you know, the more that I've charged, the more the video is around for the higher end weddings. So photographers, you know, will work that. I just wanted to make sure to make note of that. And if you are a new videographer or working with a photographer, just what Caroline's saying again and again is it really just comes down to communication and making sure that you know where each other are going to be. And if you're a videographer or photographer listening to this, you should be thinking like, hey, we're a team. How can we communicate together?
Yeah.
You know, so.
And honestly, I think throughout the wedding day, it's pretty fluid and flexible. I think the only time that I find myself having to really plan it out is the first look and the ceremony. Mm-hmm. So like if the photographer is not one who will lead, like I'm bossy, I guess. So I like managing the group. So I will like pull the whole photo and video team, even if they're not my video crew. And, you know, we're going to have a team meeting. Like, so ceremony, where's everyone going to be, right? All right, you're going to be there. You're going to be here. Okay. You know, stay out of the aisle until the bride is going down with her dad. Then we are going to move into it together. Like, I'll set the pace so that, you know, we're not in each other's shots. After the ceremony or after the processional, like, feel free to I just need to be in the aisle during the ring exchange. But other than that, I'll be out of it. You're welcome to set up your camera in the aisle at that time or set it up further back. You know, so we have that communication. Things are expected and we know it's like a dance. It's a choreographed dance that we're doing.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, and the worst photographers to work with on my end are always the ones that are not willing to just respect what I am trying to do. And so, you know, just building that relationship and that rapport with them, you know, because most photographers have worked with a really crappy videographer, or the ones that hate videographers, you know, that they've just got this experience with like the video guy being right up in people's faces with a prime lens in every shot, in, you know, not knowing how to communicate well and making them redo things. So like most of the time when a photographer sees a videographer in the medium range, you know, wedding budget budgets. They're just like, a video person, no. And so like you have to win them over a little bit. You kind of have to, win some of that emotion with them and like help them and show them that you're actually there to serve the couple together. And so that communication is so big.
I think just that introduction in the very beginning will do wonders. Will break a whole bunch of ice. If you just come up to them right in the start, introduce yourself, hey, this is like whoever the lead video guy is, go up, or girl, go up, introduce yourself. Like, I'm the lead and so is, if you have any issues, or you can address it to me and vice versa, and find out who their team is and who's running the show.
I think that's a huge one. And I know that there's some people that are listening to this that might be just, I don't know, they're kind of more of a timid person, to begin with, and just walking up to someone and introducing yourself is kind of strange or might feel weird or make you feel awkward or whatever. But I think that that's one of the things that my wife and I do on the wedding day when it's people we've never worked with is, go introduce, we go talk to the bride, first off, hi, we're here, glad to be here. And then we go straight to the photographer and just, introduce ourselves and talk to them and set up that relationship and say, before first look, before ceremony, before toasts and all those things, we'll be sure to communicate and let you know where we're going to be and that kind of stuff to really help that process.
Yeah. And if you're timid, I think the advice that I would give for someone who is timid is, yes, it is really scary walking up to a photographer you've never worked with and introduce yourself, but isn't it better to just get it done with, like rip the Band-Aid off right at the beginning, than to be dancing around them all day?
Sure. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, when it comes to getting, it's really easy for us as video, and I'm sure, the photo people as well, to think, oh, they were, this person kept on getting in my shot or whatever. And I think that most people aren't jerks. I mean, there are some that might lean that way, but most people aren't that way, right? And it's, you get in the groove as your photographer and you have your camera up to and you're not even thinking about anything else that's going on with you or anything around you, and you're just snapping and getting shots and stuff. And it wasn't until afterwards that you're like, oh, did I get in your shot? I'm sorry, maybe something like that. So I think most people, it's not a purposeful thing. It's I'm in my element, I'm doing my thing. It's
related to what you're saying about jerks. I had, there was one videographer that I worked with. This was 10 years ago. And at the time, he was pretty big name. I don't know if he's still around because I chose not to work with him after that. But it was right before the processional. So the bride has to come down a hallway before coming out to the main ceremony. So I stood at the very back of the hallway and I'm waiting for her to come down. He comes in maybe about 3 feet in front of me and plops his tripod right in front of me. And so then my second shooter goes up to him and is like, oh, Caroline's actually is actually right behind you. And he looks back and he's like, she could shoot around me, and continues. So there are jerks,
Not cool video person. Yeah.
But it's like, it only takes like one bad apple to give like a bad rap to a whole industry, right? That's not normal, though.
And that's where we see that a lot in, a lot of the churches that we work in. They have these very specific rules about specifically video, usually because one person did something where they didn't communicate or they just did it wrong, and now everyone else has to suffer with that. So
because of that one person, now no one's allowed here.
Right.
So in our Facebook group, I don't know if you know or not, we do have a Facebook group.
We do.
It's growing. There's like 4,000 people in there. I mean, that's a lot. It's crazy. In the group, we talk a lot about like working with other vendors, vendor referrals, building relationships. So when you're working with a video crew, what are some things that are like, if we do these kinds of things, this is going to put them on the photographer's list of like, I want to refer that crew. Anything stand out to you?
I think a lot of it has to do with attitude. Like, I like positive vibes. There are some people who just kind of drain the energy from a room. And I know that's like hard to control, but if you know that you're one of them, and I'm not sure if they tend to be self-aware or not, but
spirit animal is Eeyore? Yes, I know of that type.
So I think just being mindful on how your energy is projected and influencing other people, because we are a team. So I love working with people who are collaborative, who are team players, and, we have a good time together. For example, at receptions or like in ballrooms when we need lights, like a lot of times, we'll work together to figure out where the best place to set up the video lights. I love working with videographers. I love working with videographers for that, because then I don't have to set up my own lights. It's like, sweet, you guys have your lights? Yeah, like that's a great place to do it. Let's put one there for some rim light, and yay. It's like having my own lighting team.
Yep, love that.
So I mean, I do think that, like, it's funny that you didn't say the work that they produce. I mean, I know that's something that's important, but like the first thing that you said was their energy, their attitude. These are all things that, whether you've been doing this for 10 years or 10 minutes, that you can really control. And I think it was like 4 or 5 years into my business, I started in 2007, before I realized, like, I did everything wrong, of course, but like before I realized, like, these vendors, I'm seeing them again and again and again. Like, I would try to impress the bride, but like forget about these vendors that like stayed in the business and would refer me if I took good care of them. And so definitely those things, just taking care of, the vendors, helping, like if you're a video crew and you have lights, it's like just asking the photographer if they're cool with that, and that communication, the attitude, that energy is what stands out way more than, oh yeah, they had a 4K camera and $10,000 lenses, So it's
such
definitely
a good point too about that, the work, because in all honesty, like, I don't actually see the finished product. Like, it just doesn't get shared with me. I don't see it, And with the exception of when same-day edits were really on trend, the days of same-day edits, that was the only time where I actually got to see the finished product. And I know I did make a few referrals based on the quality of the same-day edit, but for the most part, I actually do not see the final result. I only know based on how we interacted that day. And it's like, I love this videographer. You should definitely like look into them. I have zero idea. I have not seen an edited video from them before.
Yeah.
And that's the phrase that's been around forever, but it's not what you know, it's who you know. It's really kind of frustrating, when you kind of think about it, because you're like, man, I am way better at what I do than this person over here, but why do they keep they are great to work with. They're great to be around. And so obviously you should strive to have quality work and, always improve your craft. But there is something to say, I talked with a planner, a few months ago at a wedding, and, she was like, I will refer you if you are nice and you are kind and you work well with me, regardless. But you could have the most beautiful work in the world, but if you're a jerk, then sorry, it's never happening again. So
it's
not worth it.
Because at that time, by the time you're able to show them your finished work to redeem yourself, they already hate you. Like if you're a jerk, that is, right?
Yeah, it's so true.
Totally. Right. So let me shift gears here, especially maybe we're people that maybe are newer, just a few years in, and speaking to them a little bit. You as a photographer, when you're on a wedding day, I know you say you like to communicate and you like to be, a team, but I'm sure there are still things that you like to handle as the photographer. And maybe it's just kind of how things are built and how we all operate. It seems that, there are certain parts of the day that kind of the photographer handles. So why don't you kind of talk about maybe those parts of the day that you like to maybe be in control, or at least, have a big say in what's going on and that sort of stuff?
I think the couple portraits and the romantics, typically I'm used to having control on that. And like I said, like it's the videographer is welcome to step in, like in between the flows and get punched and stuff. But I typically like to definitely have kind of like my dedicated time. But if they want time too, like, yeah, feel free. I like going back and forth because it gives me time to think a little bit. So don't be afraid to ask. Like if you have a vision that you feel like, there's this thing that I wanted to do, like feel free to go in and execute your vision as well. I will say one thing that I felt was annoying at one point was when the videographer wanted to do that to every single shot. Like, I just shot the shoes. Okay, can I get that exact, and every detail shot, like they wanted the same angle, the same. And I was like, I'm pretty sure you're not going to use all of that into your film. And so, but I think that happens when one comes in without a clear vision, when they don't have a clear vision of the footage they need. And so you could tell they are overshooting. Like they are getting way more footage than they will ever need. But I get it. It takes time to find your voice and to find that rhythm, you know, but yeah, I would say like the detail shots in the morning when I'm doing my flat lays, it takes me time. Like I'm not always satisfied with the first flat lay I do. And so it takes time for me to kind of manipulate it around until I'm really satisfied. And so if they're constantly interrupting, wanting every single shot, it's like, it's not done yet, just wait. Like it's going to be so much better when I'm done with it.
Right. And that's something too, when it comes to like the details, you know, of the day. Not too long ago, my wife and I, we stopped shooting details how photographers shoot details because we're not photographers. You know, video is a different medium. And so that really was like, oh, you mean I don't have to, you know, shoot this stuff when it's all laid flat like that. You know, I don't, but we felt compelled to because, you know, that's what the photo was doing and that kind of stuff. So, you know, just a little tip for listeners out there is your video. You don't have to shoot them everything the same way that the photo people do.
And I would add there, like, one thing that I've really started doing is just kind of being more self-aware of what's really important to the photographer to get and what's really important for me. And when I get to a wedding, you know, I'll talk to the photographer or whatever, and I'll say movement is really important for me. So if there's ever a time during, you know, the romantics or whatever where I want maybe some movement, I'll just be next to you and ask you, hey, I'm going to grab some movement. Or, hey, the dress shot, you know, I want to get her pulling it off of the hanger. That's movement instead of it just sitting there. But just communicating to the photographer that movement is important to me is a big deal. And then the other thing I communicate, I say, during the letters, during anything with like audio being recorded, that's really important to me. It's usually not as important to the photographer. So I'll ask, is that really important? If you could just be aware that I'm recording audio, you know, it's just communication, but like that's really important to us. Whereas like, you know, family photos and, you know, all that's like, that's not super important to, you know, either of us really, but like it's more the photographer, you know, that like you have to get those shots, you know, for the couple or whatever. And it's like, I stay out of the photographer's way during that time. But like during the bride and groom portraits, I'm very much like, okay, I'm standing next to the photographer and she might be getting something or he might be getting something and saying, right after this, I want to have them do something real quick. And they're like, cool. And it gives them a chance to like take their head out of their camera, look around and be like, oh, they're planning the next thing. And I get compliments from being assertive and just saying, I want to do this thing on top of what you're doing, or, oh, let's get this here. But after that, can we maybe do something here? I want to get some movement, but just that little bit of communication instead of just every single thing duplicating what they do is going to take you, you know, you're going to not only make the photographer happy, but like they're going to feed off of you. They're going to feel that energy from you. And so it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I think understanding, and this came from experience, but understanding what are the photo moments versus the video moments. So like, for example, during toast and speeches, those are video moments, you know? So and I tell, like, if it's like a more timid videographer or newer videographer, like I tell them, I was like, you know, this is your moment. You can set it up however you need to set it up. You can't mess this up. Like, you know, you need to get this. For me, I got a few shots and I'm done, right? So don't be afraid of me. Like, get in there, set up how you need it set up.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because, you know, I have butted heads with photographers that didn't like how I set it up and set the lighting, and I pulled the toaster out from behind the table, you know, that kind of stuff, because I wanted it lit well, and, you know, I wanted it to look a certain way. And so I'm glad that you brought that up. That's
don't we all just want to work with Caroline?
Yeah,
I mean,
we do.
Can we all just work with you? Where do we get on your good list? Like,
right,
I mean, can you throw us down at the bottom of it and just give us some scraps or something? Just saying.
So tell me, what CRM do you use? If you're not sure or you don't know what a CRM is, I'm about to save you a lot of time and therefore money. CRM stands for Customer Relationship Management. Basically, a CRM is an online service that helps you better serve your clients. HoneyBook is both mine and John's CRM of choice. We absolutely love it. HoneyBook allows us to do all of our correspondence, contracts, and payments all in one place. One of the features that I love is the automated workflow. We all have emails that we send out to all of our clients, right? At 6 months, 3 months, 1 month, the week of. All of us do it. Automated workflows make it so that those emails can go out automatically. Since I don't have to take time to, 1, remember to send them out, and 2, to write them, I save time and make more money by working more efficiently. Are you interested in saving time on the business side of things? Go to howtofilmweddings.com/honeybook for a free 1-week trial. Also, because the Honeybooks really like me and John, we can give you $200 off of your first year, and that also comes with a 60-day money-back guarantee. So what are you waiting for? Go to howtofilmweddings.com/honeybook to start saving lots of time in your business. Oh yeah, legally I have to tell you that John and I are affiliates of Honeybook. Now it's time for our question of the day presented by Wedditor. Wedditor, more than freelance, more than outsourcing. And our friend Max Sadek asks this: can you give us some tips on lighting?
Yeah.
I hear she's pretty good at lighting, and I really love
have
Max
heard
Sadek.
That. Yeah, I've heard that she's good at lighting. So
Yeah.
What do you got?
I guess it depends on the kind of light you're looking for, but in general, I think what's most applicable to wedding photographers is probably how to shoot in a dark hotel room. For me, I look for that window. I know it's cliche, but you want as big of a light source as you can get. I generally don't like to add flash and stuff because I think it kind of takes away from the mood. And I think, especially with video, you're able to really play up on those mood. You know, if it's dark and you're just seeing kind of the highlights of the silhouette and stuff. So I don't feel like you necessarily need to add light for that kind of stuff. But if you want flattering, if you're looking for less contrast and a little bit more softer light, bring them as close to the window as you can. What I do is anything that I know the bride's going to need to handle, for example, her wedding dress, her shoes, I put them where I know the lighting is best. So if you don't want her to get dressed in that dark closet, don't put that dress in that closet, because guess where she's going to get dressed when she goes grab her dress. So you look in the hotel room already and decide where is the best lighting. You know, most likely it's going to be close to the window. Hang the dress there, because when she gets her dress to get dressed, guess where she'll be? She'll be exactly where you wanted her to be lit. I think the other challenge is probably splotchy lighting, like hot splotchy lighting, because oftentimes when you get your wedding timeline, I don't know about you guys, but for me, it's always like wedding first look, 1 o'clock, you know,
Right?
Definitely. Which is also couple portraits, 1 o'clock. So we're doing most of the couple portraits during the 1 to 2 block time frame usually. And I would say one of the things to know is that you need to know the rules to break the rules. So everything I'm telling you right now is not like the end all be all, but it's how to get the properly lit photos. So yes, when you start getting more comfortable with lighting and you understand how to purposely artistically break the rules, like, yes, go do it. But I do find that a lot of people, when they first start out, they really struggle with these harsh lighting. And so I'm giving you tips to have the most safe lighting so that you know that it will be as foolproof as possible. So I find first looks tend to be challenging because, you know, they want it in that beautiful, underneath that big, beautiful tree, or underneath like where the splotchy lighting is coming right on them. In terms of lighting, I generally avoid shooting on grass because you get green color cast coming up, and I'm pretty sure it's the same for video. For photos, it's like almost impossible to edit, and I think video grading is even more difficult.
For sure.
Maybe because I don't know how to do it properly, but
No, it's hard.
but yeah, like if you have to try to take out this green cast that is on all of like the bottom of them, like it's impossible. So I generally avoid putting them right on the grass. If you want grass in the background, I would pull them as far forward, like so that it's like the sidewalk or the concrete that's in front of them, but not actually reflecting up on them. And then there's a FedEx truck behind me right now. that really changed my exposure. So I'm just wondering if the video there is totally blown out right now. But so I think
as she's talking about light.
Yes, as I'm talking about light. You see, this is an example of like really highly backlit situation. I generally recommend backlighting because if you backlight them, that is going to avoid any splotchy light situation too. Because I find that a lot of times I'll see people take pictures of couples underneath trees and then you get like hot spots. Like, because I know they're seeking the shade, they think it's safe, but then they get splotchiness. So I would say still try to backlight as much as possible. Like, unless you're right on the equator, and even right when I shot in Ecuador earlier this year, we were right on the equator. Even there's at high noon, there's still like an angle that you can get. It's slightly backlit. And I would recommend just taking your hand and just going around the situation and just see which one has the most evenly lit. And when you find that part where you're looking for the shadows that are between your fingers, that represents the shadows that are going to be right here and right here. And so where it's like the least contrast and the most soft light, then that's where you can place your subject and get some beautiful soft portraits.
Such great info.
I have a photo friend that lives in San Diego, and we shot with him a few times, and he would just walk around and he just, have his hand up like this and like do all this stuff. And I was like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm looking for the light. And I never understood it. And so I'm glad that you just explained that to me. He was like looking at the shadows under his fingers. So
if you're not
I figured it was
this,
something like that. I just didn't have the explanation.
If you're not watching this on YouTube or Facebook, you're going to have to tune in and see what she did with her hands. I'm just saying.
Yeah, definitely.
I have something, Nick.
Tell her.
Okay?
Talk about it. Bring it up. Yes.
So she's talking about lighting, and I don't know if you guys know much about this woman, but she's really good at photography. She's taught lots of people. She's killing it.
Can I say this real quick? So my wife started photography in 2010, and when I told her name's Jen, and I said, "Hey Jen, we're gonna interview Caroline Tran," and she was like, "Wait, hold up, who are you talking to?" And I said, "Caroline," and she goes, can I do the interview? Like she's been following you for so long, and she was like, got a little fangirly over the fact that John and I get to talk to you. So you're
lucky.
a big deal. Yeah,
yes.
Definitely.
So, she is a big deal, and we really only allow the big deal photographers on the How to Film Weddings podcast.
I get to take the big deal seat today.
Yeah. We're just here to make you feel good. Now, you're talking about lighting. There's so much that goes along with lighting, and it translates between video and photo very similarly. Definitely. Before we were on, you were talking a couple of things that you offer. You said education's a big deal. Why don't you take a few minutes and kind of just talk about a couple of the educational products that you have, the courses, all that good stuff? Yeah,
so I guess backtracking a little bit, like the inspiration for where I came up with my education is I used to be a high school teacher, so I already come from a background of education. I love mentoring, inspiring, and just helping people in general. I left teaching to pursue photography. When I started photography, naturally you find forums. There weren't Facebook groups at the time, but we had Flickr groups. So, you form groups of friends who are in the same journey with you. And to me, they're like cohorts. We start growing together. We started attending WPPI together. And WPPI became this fun, like annual reunion for us, right? Like we only know each other online. We get to meet in person once a year at this convention in Vegas. And and it was so fun, and year after year, I would look forward to seeing my friends again. But after I noticed year after year, there were less and less friends. People were dropping out of the industry. They weren't making it, and I think by year 3, I had to find a whole new group of friends because they weren't even in business anymore. And then again, make a new set of friends. By year 5, more people are dropping off. They're dropping off like flies. And I just couldn't help but to think, how can I help more people stay in business? Because I feel so fortunate, that I get to do this. And I know it's certainly not because of a lack of talent, because I know that they are very talented artists themselves, right? I see talented people not in business. I see mediocre people running a great business. So where is that happy medium? Where you can be that happy artist that's also making a living and not a starving artist. So that's where I started hosting workshops, just to help more photographers succeed, because I do believe that it helps our industry as a whole. Like if we can just raise the standard and lift the whole industry up, like we all benefit from that, right? And so
Definitely.
I started running in-person like retreats, and they were so fun. 4 days, we all slept in a big villa, and it was like eat, sleep, drink, whatever together, like work on photography, work on classes. But some of the deeper work we did was like the mindset work, like I realized that a lot of people's blockage was not because of their photography or because of their lack of knowledge. It's because it was self-inflicted. I can't quit my 9 to 5. I can't run a business, doing creative business. Like there's no income in that. So there's a lot of like fears that we have for ourselves. And so I was just thinking, how can I help these people break out of this? And because I was there, I was scared of leaving my teaching job. And when I finally did, it's like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, and I'm so grateful that I get to do this for a living now and not do it only on the side or at night when I'm super tired. I get to actually do this full time now, right? So this year I focused on bringing the education online so that I can help more people, because not everyone can afford to fly out to California to do these in-person stuff. So the online stuff I'm super excited about, because I have anything from your very beginner, which is how do I use this fancy camera and I love that course because it's just how to shoot manual mode, what all the buttons and dials are, and really how to take control of that camera. And then I have a lighting course all about light. I have a posing course, and I love my posing course, and I think it would benefit cinematographers as well, because it's prompt-based. It's little cues that I give my couples, games that I have my couples do that really engages them. It not only helps them connect, because that that chemistry shows on film, right, on camera, but it also helps me connect with them as well, because that lowers the barrier, the boundaries, and we're able to get more authentic and genuine emotions as a result from that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And if people are interested in, checking out your courses and maybe looking into those, where can they go to find them? Just your website? So
CarolineTranEducation.com is where I'm hosting all of my resources for photographers and videographers. And then if you're interested in seeing my work, CarolineTran.net. And then you can find me on Instagram at Caroline Tran. And yeah, I'm very active on there. It's me engaging. So feel free to send me questions or comments.
Yeah.
And then
thank you so much for taking the time and spending it with us today. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's really an honor. I love what you guys are doing here.
Thanks.
Well, we're very big fans. Thank you again so much. Like, it's such good info. I know that we could keep going and going, so we'll definitely have to have you back on. But yes, we know that you're a busy person, so thank you so much for taking the time.
Awesome.
One thing we wanted to let you know about is howtofilmweddings.com. Have you been to howtofilmweddings.com recently, John?
I have, and it's awesome.
And we just added something to our howtofilmweddings.com site. You can get some sweet merch. That is right. A coffee mug that says World's Best Podcast. You can get a t-shirt that says Crockpots and Sticky Buns and Deep Nuggets and Weddings. John might have an example for you right there.
I'm just saying.
And we actually have a sticker with a crockpot on it.
So many good
sticker
things.
with a crockpot on it. So just go to howtofilmweddings.com, click on the little slide thing, and something will slide out, and you can get yourself some of your own How to Film Weddings swag.
It's incredible. Okay, we need to wrap this thing up. I'm landing the plane. If you haven't already, like us on Facebook, share this video. If you're on a podcatcher, give us a review. Definitely be joining in on that Facebook community. Just search How to Film Weddings on Facebook. And until next time, we will see you.
See ya!